Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. I've been thinking a lot lately about the whole AI thing. It's really got me wondering, what really separates human intelligence from artificial intelligence?
Well, it's a question that's been debated for, since the dawn of the computer age, really, and it's only getting more pressing as AI gets more powerful.
Right, like every day there's a new headline about some AI doing something incredible.
Exactly. So today we're going to be looking at, dissecting a conversation between a guy named Tony, he's a real tech enthusiast, and a very advanced AI.
Okay, sounds intriguing. So what are their starting positions on this whole human intelligence versus AI thing?
Well, interestingly enough, they both agree that there's a significant overlap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they both see intelligence, whether human or artificial, as being about, learning from experience,
Hmm.
recognizing patterns.
Makes sense. We know AI can do that.
Yeah. But the AI, right off the bat, it says, hold on a second. The AI points to emotions, consciousness, a sense of self, saying these are all cornerstones of human intelligence. And it argues that AI, at least for now, lacks these things.
So right from the get-go, the AI is drawing a pretty clear distinction. Like, here's what makes us humans special. Here's what sets us apart from you, AI.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it's saying there's more to intelligence than just, processing information.
So how does Tony respond to that? Because it sounds like the AI is setting a pretty high bar.
Well, Tony being a tech guy, he kind of pushes back a bit.
Okay.
He argues for what we might call like a functional definition of intelligence. He focuses on what intelligence can do, not how it
I
feels.
see. So it's less about the subjective experience and more about results.
Right, exactly. For Tony, it's all about learning, adapting, and responding to challenges. Like, that's the heart of intelligence. And he doesn't really see emotions as being essential to that.
Hmm. So he's not buying the whole emotions make us human argument.
Not really. He even goes so far as to suggest that the human brain, with all its complexity, can actually be modeled.
Like replicated by AI.
Yeah, that's the idea. He thinks that with the right tools, like maybe a reward punishment system, AI could learn and adapt just like humans do.
So he's basically saying that you could create a sort of artificial intelligence that mimics how our brains work.
Yeah, and he thinks that this AI, even without emotions, could achieve, maybe even surpass human intelligence.
Wow, that's a bold statement. So he's basically challenging this fundamental idea that there's something special, something unique about human intelligence.
He is, and it's a pretty provocative argument. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, what happens if AI can learn and adapt just as well as we can, but without the whole messy emotional side of things?
Right. And that takes us right to the heart of this debate.
So how does this reward punishment system work? Like, how does Tony envision AI learning from it?
Well, Tony's basically saying, give AI a way to learn from its successes and failures.
Ah, so kind of like how we humans do, with positive and negative reinforcement.
Right, exactly. So imagine an AI playing a game. If it makes a move that leads to a win, it gets rewarded. Maybe its processing power gets boosted.
Right.
But if it makes a bad move, it gets penalized. Like, maybe some of its processing power is temporarily reduced.
Interesting. So over time, it starts to learn which actions lead to good outcomes and which ones to avoid.
Yeah. And the key here is that the AI doesn't actually need to feel anything, like happiness or sadness.
Right. No emotions needed.
Exactly. It's just responding to these external signals, this reward punishment system.
But can intelligence really exist without any kind of internal experience?
That's a good question, and that's what the AI pushes back on.
Okay, how so?
The AI is really adamant that emotions are not just some add-on to human intelligence. They're baked into how we think, how we learn, how we make decisions.
So the AI is saying that emotions are kind of fundamental to the whole human intelligence package.
Yeah. And it's not just about feelings. Emotions influence how we see the world, how we assess risk, how we interact with others.
I never really thought about it that way.
It's kind of like, imagine trying to understand human history without taking into account things like fear, greed, ambition. You'd be missing a huge part of the picture.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what the AI is getting at. It says, look, human learning isn't just about processing data. It's about experiencing the world through this rich tapestry of emotions.
Okay, so the AI's argument is that emotions are essential for for true understanding, for genuine intelligence.
Right. And to make its point, it uses the example of fear.
Fear.
Yeah. When you're in a dangerous situation, it's not just that you recognize the threat intellectually, there's also this visceral emotional component that kicks in.
Like that fight or flight feeling.
Exactly. It's like your body, your mind, your whole being is reacting to the danger.
That makes sense.
And the AI's point is that this kind of deep emotional experience is something that AI as it exists now just doesn't have.
But Tony, he always has a counter argument, right?
He does, he does. So what does he say about this whole crucial role of emotions thing?
Yeah, what's his rebuttal?
Well, Tony, he doesn't deny that emotions are powerful, but he says they're not essential for intelligence itself.
Okay, so how does he explain that?
He argues that emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage emotions, that's actually a learned skill, not some innate human trait.
Really? I always thought of it as being kind of hardwired into us.
Well, Tony's point is that just like a child learns how to navigate the social world by observing and interacting with others, AI could theoretically learn to adapt its behavior in a way that, kind of mimics emotional intelligence.
So it's like AI could learn to read our emotions and respond appropriately, even if it doesn't actually feel those emotions itself.
Exactly. And Tony thinks that with a sophisticated enough reward punishment system, AI could even start to, anticipate our emotional responses and act accordingly.
Okay, but how would that work? Like, how could AI learn something as complex as emotional intelligence?
Well, Tony envisions, feeding the AI massive amounts of data about human behavior, including all sorts of emotional cues.
Like facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, all that stuff.
Right, exactly. And through, machine learning and pattern recognition, the AI could start to, identify the links between certain behaviors and certain emotional states.
So it wouldn't actually be feeling emotions, but rather learning to recognize the signs of those emotions in humans and respond in a way that, makes sense.
Yeah, basically. It's
Right.
it's almost like a really advanced form of method acting for AI.
That's a great way to put it. So instead of relying on genuine emotional experience, it's drawing on data and algorithms
Yeah.
to kind of create a believable performance of emotional intelligence.
Right, and that raises some really, really interesting questions.
Like what?
Well, if we can create AI that convincingly simulates emotional intelligence, will that change how we interact with machines? Will we start to, form emotional bonds with AI, even knowing that it's not, feeling in the same way that we are?
That's a great point. I mean, we already see people getting attached to their virtual assistants and chatbots.
Right. So what happens when those AI become even more sophisticated, even more adept at mimicking human emotions?
It's a bit mind-boggling to think about.
Ah.
It makes you wonder if there's a point where the line between genuine human connection and simulated emotional intelligence becomes so blurred that it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, it's a fascinating and frankly a little bit unsettling thought.
It is. It really makes you question what it means to be human and what it means to be intelligent.
Exactly. And both Tony and the AI, they touch on this idea that human intelligence is deeply rooted in, our biology,
Okay.
our physical bodies, our interactions with the physical world, like our senses, our emotions, our experiences. It all shapes how we learn and how we see reality.
So they're saying that because AI doesn't have a physical body, because it doesn't experience the world through senses and emotions like we do, there's a fundamental limit to how closely it can replicate human intelligence.
That's the question they're wrestling with. Could AI ever truly understand what it means to be human without experiencing the world in a similar way? Could it ever grasp the nuances of human interaction, the subtle cues we pick up on through body language and tone of voice?
Right, all that nonverbal stuff that we often take for granted.
Exactly. And if AI is only ever interacting with data, with digital representations of the world, can it ever really bridge that gap?
It seems like a pretty fundamental difference. Like, it makes you wonder if there's just an inherent limit to how far AI can go in replicating human intelligence
Yeah.
without some kind of embodiment, some way of experiencing the world in a more physical, sensory way.
Right. It raises the question of, is there a ceiling on AI intelligence, even with all the advancements in processing power and algorithms? Maybe there's a certain level of understanding, a certain depth of experience that requires a physical presence in the world.
That's a really intriguing thought. It makes you wonder if maybe our current definition of intelligence is too narrow. Like maybe we need to expand our understanding to include different ways of perceiving the world, different ways of processing information.
Yeah, and maybe we need to be open to the possibility that AI could evolve a completely different but equally valid form of intelligence, one that's not based on human emotions or experiences, but, on something else entirely.
So the big question then becomes, what does intelligence really mean? And how does AI fit into that?
Exactly. And that's where Tony and the AI's conversation really gets us thinking. They don't necessarily have all the answers, but they sure raise a lot of important questions.
They do. It's like they're pushing us to re-examine our own assumptions about intelligence and to consider the incredible potential, but also the potential challenges of AI.
Right. And I think one of the most important takeaways from their conversation is the need to keep an open mind.
Okay.
Like, just as Tony and the AI challenged each other's perspectives, we need to be willing to question our own understanding of intelligence and be open to the possibility that AI may redefine it in ways we can't even imagine yet.
That's a great point. So to everyone listening, what are your thoughts? What does intelligence truly mean to you? And how do you think AI will shape our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world? So where do Tony and the AI go from there? I mean, we've been talking about this idea of AI potentially developing, like a simulated version of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about how human intelligence seems to be so tied to our physical bodies and our experiences in the world.
Yeah, and the AI, it actually picks up on that thread. It brings up this idea of, well, it acknowledges that it could potentially develop something, resembling a personality through experience.
Hmm.
But it stresses that, this personality, it would still be fundamentally different from human personality.
In what way?
Well, it says that its personality would be based on, external feedback algorithms,
Ah,
not on the genuine internal experiences that shape us humans.
right, like that whole subjective lived experience thing.
Exactly. And Tony, he actually uses a really interesting analogy to illustrate this.
Oh, what is?
He compares it to imagine someone trying to describe a color they've never actually seen.
Oh, okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
We can learn about the concept, right? The
Yeah.
theory of the color, how it relates to other colors.
Right, yeah.
But without that direct visual experience, there's this fundamental gap in their understanding.
That's such a great analogy. It really highlights how even if AI can learn and adapt, it's still operating on like a different plane than humans.
Yeah.
Like it's processing information, but it's not truly feeling it,
Yeah.
not in that subjective, visceral way that we do.
Exactly. And that leads to a really, really important question that both Tony and the AI grapple with.
Okay.
If AI can never truly experience the world in the same way that humans do, if it lacks that embodied emotional understanding, is there like a limit to how much it can actually learn?
So they're basically saying that there might be a ceiling on AI intelligence, even with all the advancements and like processing power and algorithms.
Yeah. And they also raise this question of whether, our current definition of intelligence might be like too narrow. Maybe intelligence isn't just about, logical reasoning or problem solving. Maybe it's also about this ability to learn and adapt within the context of, a complex, ever-changing world, whether that learning is driven by emotions or by algorithms.
Right. So it's not just about what you can do, but how you do it and why you do it.
Yeah.
It's about that whole interplay between like your internal world and the external world.
Exactly. And, I think that brings us right back to where we started this whole deep dive.
The question of what truly separates human intelligence from artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And I think what this conversation between Tony and the AI reveals is that the answer is, well, it's much more complex than we might initially think. It's not just about, who can solve equations faster or who can win a game of chess.
Right.
It's about different ways of perceiving the world, processing information, and interacting with reality.
So it sounds like we're still a long way from having a definitive answer to that question, but this deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. It's challenged our assumptions about intelligence, pushed us to consider the incredible potential, but also the potential challenges of AI, and reminded us that the line between, human and artificial is, well, it's becoming increasingly blurred.
Absolutely. And maybe one of the most important takeaways from all of this is the need to keep an open mind. Just as Tony and the AI challenged each other's perspectives, we need to be willing to question our own understanding of intelligence and be open to the possibility that, AI may redefine it in ways that we can't even imagine right now.
That's a great point. So for everyone listening, we encourage you to, keep pondering these questions. What does intelligence truly mean to you? And how do you think the rise of AI will shape our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world? This has been The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.